Hi, people. My name is Patricia. I'd like to tell you a story about how my doppelganger hunted me. My parents died in a car accident, and my younger sister Angela and I were raised by my grandmother. One time, new neighbors moved to our house. Their son Charles immediately became my new best friend. We spent all our free time together. With time, friendship turned into romance, and we began dating. My grandmother and sister also liked Charles. He was a true romantic. He passed me notes, gifted me flowers, even wrote poems dedicated to me. But one day, he stopped answering my phone calls and SMS. I did not understand what happened. When I went to his place to talk to him, a stranger opened the door. She told me that Charles's family sold their flat and moved to Italy. I just could not believe it. Charles didn't even say goodbye to me. 5 years have passed, and I still remained single. Charles was my first love, and I couldn't forget him no matter how much I tried. One day, my friends invited me to a party. Initially, I didn't want to go there, but my grandmother practically ordered me to go and unwind. At the party, an unfamiliar young man approached me and asked me to dance. I refused without even looking at him. But then I looked up and suddenly realized that it was Charles. He had matured a lot. The young boy I remembered had transformed into a real man. We danced all evening and talked until the morning. Charles told me that his parents were against our relationship. They always wanted a daughter-in-law from a wealthy family. Unfortunately, my relatives did not meet their requirements. Charles had to become independent from his parents and their demands. He managed to open a cafe in Italy, which over time became quite a profitable establishment. And he never forgot me in all these years. Yet Charles didn't want to call me because he thought that I had long since got married. When I told him that I was not married, Charles suddenly kissed me. I felt as if I was in a magical dream. The dream ended in the morning. My sister Angela called and told me that our grandmother passed away. The news hit me hard. Only with Charles's help, I have been able to move on. Later, I told him that his support was very important to me now that my sister and I have been all alone in the big, cruel world. In response, he kissed me and squeezed my hand tightly. Then, he handed me a ring and proposed to me. Charles said that he was very afraid of losing me again and wanted to take me with him to Italy. Naturally, I answered yes. In a few days after the funeral, a notary called and asked me several questions about the will. When I told Charles about that, he replied that I shouldn't worry. He was going to take care of the documents for me. I was very ill at the time, and I even had to take sick leave, so I was really grateful to him. But from that day, weird things started happening to me. One evening, my boss called me and announced that I got fired. She said she saw me the day before with my spouse near our office. I looked absolutely healthy and was definitely having fun, but this was not true because the day before, I couldn't even get out of bed. The boss did not believe me and hung up. I called several of my colleagues, but they all agreed with the boss. All of that was very strange. The next day, I met with Charles and shared the situation with him. I wanted to go to the office and explain everything to the boss in person, but my boyfriend told me that she was just looking for an excuse to fire me, and so she came up with that tale. Charles could easily have been right. The boys always did not like me, and I believed him. He convinced me that my life had actually changed for the better. After all, in a month, we planned to fly to Italy together. Soon my boyfriend moved to me, and we began to live together. One time, I was cleaning our apartment and saw Charles's backpack, where he usually kept gym clothes. Surprisingly, I found the set of my own everyday wear there, a power suit and a pair of shoes. This find really surprised me. I asked my fiancé about it, but he told me that he had wanted to take them to the dry cleaners. Charles reassured me of his love. My fiancé said he just wanted to take care of me. Therefore, I needed to accept his love and care with gratitude. Soon we told Angela about our engagement. In honor of this event, my sister and I prepared a festive dinner. She really liked the tiramisu that I served for dessert. My sister asked Charles to translate the list of contents on the package. He reluctantly translated a couple of sentences. After dinner, when my sister and I were washing the dishes, she suddenly told me that Charles had lied. My sister knew a little Italian and realized that he came up with a couple random words for translation. Therefore, Angela understood that my fiancé knew zero Italian. But at that moment, Charles himself entered the kitchen and began to accuse Angela of envy. Charles said that many years ago he'd come to our place to say goodbye right before moving to Italy. But my sister had told him that I had not been home. He accused her of being jealous. I looked at Angela, and she looked down. That evening, my sister and I had a serious fight. After the conflict, I was caught in the middle. Angela told me that I should have taken her side, and Charles was very angry because I doubted him. First of all, I decided to make peace with my sister and invited her to a cafe. But even during this meeting, Angela tried to persuade me that Charles was not at all who he claimed to be. She even told me she had evidence and pulled an envelope out of her bag. But I couldn't stand it anymore and just blurted out that I was tired of her envy. Angela got offended by my words and walked off in rage. Still, I opened that envelope and was dumbfounded when I saw photographs of Charles with a stranger who looked very similar to me. But my fiancé just laughed it off. He explained that the girl was an old acquaintance of his, and my sister and I were paranoid. He also tried to discard the fact that his friend was literally the spitting image of me. That's where I did not believe Charles for the first time. You see, the stranger was practically my doppelganger. To dispel my suspicions, Charles suggested taking a vacation in the mountains together with his friend and her husband. I considered that a good idea. I really was at the limit, and I needed some good rest. The trip to the mountains was a really great idea. We were settled in a cozy house with a fabulous view of the forest. Charles prepared a romantic dinner and even lit the candles. He told me that his friends were late because of traffic, and we were free to start dinner without them. I was glad because I was very hungry. But in 15 minutes, I somehow felt strange. My head was spinning, and I was seeing double. My boyfriend reassured me by saying that it was all because of the fresh mountain air. After that, I fell asleep. I woke up in the basement from a terrible headache. My arms and legs were tightly bound with tape. But the worst was that my double stood over me, the same girl from the photos. I asked the stranger's name, and she answered with laughter that she was the real me. At that moment, Charles went down to the basement. He said that he never really loved me and was not going to marry me. He was only wooing me because of my inheritance. My double, whose name was Carla, had already visited the notary and had taken care of the documents. Now I understood why the boss had fired me and why Charles had needed my clothes. They had wanted to deceive the notary, and their plan had turned out to be a success. My groom said goodbye to me and told me that they had to rush to the plane, and I would be forced to remain in the basement until the return of the owner of the house. But suddenly, I heard sirens wailing. Charles and Carla rushed to the exit, but it was too late. Policemen burst into the basement, and Angela was there with them. Charles and my double were handcuffed, and my sister rushed to untie me. I asked her how she found out about Charles's plan. Angela smiled and replied that the younger sisters always eavesdrop on conversations of the older ones. So when my phone stopped answering, she immediately called the police. The detective at the police station showed me photographs of Charles and said that my fiancé was a con artist. In fact, he had never been to Italy, and he had never owned a business. As a child, Charles ended up in a prison colony for juvenile offenders on charge of robbery. His parents moved to another city to save their reputation, while Charles lied to all of his friends that he was leaving for Italy. After the release, the man decided to visit the old friends in order to borrow money and lie low. But then, he met me, heard about my inheritance, and changed his plans. His girlfriend Carla really looked like me. In addition, she studied my way of speaking, style of clothes, and even started wearing the same makeup. It allowed for her to dupe the notary with ease. While the policemen were taking the couple in handcuffs away, Charles suddenly started apologizing to me. He said that it was Carla who came up with the whole plan, and he simply was under her influence. I did not give him an answer. and only looked at Carla with sympathy. She lowered her eyes, took off my engagement ring, and dropped it on the ground. I was not angry at the girl. I even felt a little sorry for her. After all, Charles actually loved only himself. This horrible experience taught me not to trust empty vows and promises. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been betrayed? And how did you manage to survive it? Besides, I realize that you need to listen to your loved ones. Sometimes, even a younger sister with an unbearable character may turn out to be your guardian angel.